That with all respect, because I never hurt anybody with any chairs or objects, or there's safe ways to hit somebody, and a lot of the props are like they're real, they're not styrofoam or like Hollywood or anything. They're real chairs and real props that you can break over somebody's back or head or something. But for the most part, wrestlers try to be really careful with that stuff, and it's it goes down to each wrestler individually with who's safe and who's not. But I would never let another wrestler hit me with a chair. It wasn't something I did. It just was something I sort of crossed out early in my career. No chair shots, and I didn't need them. I didn't believe in them, and they weren't necessary. It wasn't for my style. I was a technical wrestler, but if I had to hit someone with a chair, I could do it right.
Yeah. Did you jumping streams here a little bit? Did you ever watch the movie The Wrestler with Mickey Rourke?
Yeah, I did, and I have mixed feeling. I thought it was actually really well acted and well directed. Very good movie in a lot of ways, but it certainly didn't remind me of my career.
No.
I just thought that like when that movie came out, The Wrestler, I thought finally there's going to be a movie that will represent or show what wrestlers go through and how much passion we have for what we do and how it really works. Because we all have respect for what we do, and I think fans have a lot of respect for what the great wrestlers do. But Hollywood was always wrestling is always something to take a shot at, make us look bad, or make us. And that movie, I thought was going to be the first movie that that you could kind of puff your chest out when you walk out of the theater and go, yeah, that's what wrestling is. But when I watched it, I was so disappointed how dark and depressing and pointless and stupid wrestling was, and how the wrestlers in the movie were all so stupid and sort of ignorant to. When you watch Mickey Rourke taping up his elbow, the very first minute of the movie, he takes it and the point of his elbow here, and I'm thinking when I'm watching, I go, who would tape his elbow like that? And that's Mickey Rourke imitating a wrestler. And I think the movie, was a very dark movie and all that, but I don't think it represented what I did for a living in any way, shape, or form. And I hope someday that maybe someone will do a real movie about wrestling.
Maybe there's the opportunity for yourself to do that. So I want to go to the audience right now. If there's any questions that are there, I know Michael's got a microphone over here. If you just want to raise your hand.
It's not a question, but I just wanted to thank you because I spent a lot of hours with my two sons watching Bret Hart matches, and it was a great way for moms and sons to come together, and it was a lot of fun in our house. The other thing I wanted to let you know is after you had your stroke, my son had written you an email or a letter. He was going through a hard time, and I just wanted to thank you for your kind words to him and the courage and inspiration that you gave him at that time. It made a big difference. So thank you.
Thank you. I always thought growing up that pro wrestling is kind of odd as a profession or entertainment that it is. That it was a great way for fathers and sons and mothers and sons and mothers and daughters. Wrestling was a little bit for everybody. There's usually one match for the kids, the younger kids. There's always more serious wrestlers, but when the whole family could go to a wrestling show back in the 70s or 80s, and it was fun for the whole family. Well, there was always one match for Dad, one match for Grandpa. There's always some beefcake kind of guy for Grandma. Like the whole family could love the whole night, And when you think about that with wrestling, like football or soccer or baseball and hockey, to someone coming from a foreign country, it's hard to understand football, like the rules and all the whistles and the stoppage at play because of a penalty or infractions and the language barriers. And then the one thing that pro wrestling was is a phenomenon that allows people to let out their aggressions while they watch a morality play. And I think with wrestling that it was special that people could understand it right away. It was just David and Goliath kind of stuff all over again. And I've always enjoyed that aspect of wrestling. And back in the 90s when wrestling started getting kind of sleazy and the storylines started becoming very sexual and controversial, I thought they were getting away from where wrestling should always be for the family, for mom and pop and grandpa and everyone, the whole family could go to a wrestling show. And they started to lose their way, and when I look at wrestling today, it's gone back to the way it used to be, where it's caters more to kids and the whole family could go, and that's what wrestling should be. That's how I want to remember wrestling.
Is there any other questions in the audience there?
Congratulations on your career. I always felt throughout your career you always had the best rhythm with Mr. Perfect in terms of technical sound and the storylines and what have you. So I wanted to ask you what your best opponent was in your career that you always felt that you worked with, and your worst, whether it was they weren't as technically sound as you, or they would hurt you, or different kind of things. And God bless your brother Owen.
Thanks. My favorite guy to wrestle was probably Mr. Perfect. He was a second generation wrestler like me. His father was a respected, tough guy in the business, and I think we were both kind of grew up in the same environment. Both, very proud of our fathers, and both highly regarded young wrestlers in the game at the time. And we had such great chemistry every time we ever wrestled, Kurt Hennig and I. So I can remember having so many great matches with him, so many nights in a row. It was like, you always know it's a great match when all the wrestlers are in the back of the dressing room. They're all outside the dressing room watching the matches, like the fans. And most of the time, whenever I wrestled Mr. Perfect, the fans would always come out and watch, or the wrestlers would always come out and watch the match. So I used to love working with him the most, and he was a great guy out of the ring too. We had a lot of great times and great memories and great drinking sessions. But we always just show up. I remember I wrestled Kurt Hennig so many times hungover that I still got good, and we had great matches, hungover or not. But he was always the most fun. Steve Austin was a lot of fun to wrestle with. I liked wrestlers that were safe, really careful. And Steve Austin was really good. And my brother Owen was a lot of fun to work with. We had so much fun together. And same as Kurt. We just had this connection where we didn't need to think about it or even talk to each other. We could just go out and wrestle all day to have a great match. Have a great match without ever planning anything. Probably the worst wrestlers. Probably Goldberg would be up there. Not the Bill. He just got taught by the wrong guys and didn't understand that you can't kick somebody in the head as hard as you can in pro wrestling. You can pretend to do that, but you can't actually do it for real. And Bill didn't understand the difference. Another guy was Vader. I don't know if you remember Vader. I don't know if it was just hard wrestling or hard. He just never washed his gear. His wrestling gear smelled like barf. And I'm not kidding, it would smell so bad. And then he would put you in a bear hug or something like that. It would just be like, and that mask, that old jock strap he used to wear on his face. I mean, he wasn't the most hygienic guy. And if he fell on you, he could hurt you. He was one of the clumsiest, stiffest wrestlers I ever worked with.
I don't even know how to top that right now.
I agree.
Are there any other questions from the audience right now? We've got one down here.
What was your most favorite match ever in your career?
I think my most favorite match was maybe the Iron Man match with Shawn Michaels, just because it was a tough match to go an hour, and to cut the pace that we cut a really fast pace in that match, and it was like all action for 60 minutes, and that's really hard to do, and to make sure there's no screw ups. And Shawn Michaels was a great wrestler, one of the best wrestlers I ever worked with, and that was a great match. Hard to top that one. Another one would be Steve Austin, WrestleMania 13. Different kind of match, but it was a great brawl. And when I watch that match back, Steve Austin will call me up sometimes, and he'll tell me that his favorite match they ever had was, it's the only one he watches back, is the one at WrestleMania 13. And we'll talk about it for an hour, about all the different things we did in that match. But it was always a lot of fun working with Steve Austin, and we had great chemistry together. WrestleMania 13 was just a great match. I think if you could watch one match back of mine, and you didn't have all day to watch an hour match, you could watch that one and be happy. It would be hard to duplicate that match.
I think we have time for one last question, and then we have to wrap things up.
What do you miss most about your career, and what are you cherishing most in your retirement?
Life. What do I miss most about my career? I miss some of the cities. I miss a lot of the wrestlers. I was always good friends with a lot of guys. Like Steve Austin was always a good friend of mine. Undertaker was a good friend of mine. You know, I have a lot of friends that are no longer with us that are, you know, Perfect, and my brother Owen, and Bulldog, and a lot of guys that are just not here today. But I had a lot of great memories, a lot of different guys. As far as what was the last part of your question?
What are you cherishing most in your retirement?
I think it was, what do you cherish most about your life in retirement?
Well, I think that I'm here. I feel like a cat that's had about 20 lives, and I'm grateful just to be here.
You've had an excellent career, which I think is very fitting that you are known as the excellence of execution. Bret, I want to thank you personally for being here today. I want to also thank March of Dimes for being a large supporter of you, and you being a large supporter of them. And I hope you'll all join with me now in a nice warm thanks for Bret and his story today.